Senate Democrats found their spine, and it's about darn time. There were lies, damn lies, and track and field in New York State. And March Madness hits Canada. And a shout out to a team that stood up for a teammate and stood on business. Hello again, everybody. This is Transposition Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay-Webb. On Monday, U.S. Senate Republicans who believed a federal ban on transgender girls and women in interscholastic and intercollegiate athletics was marching to a winning touchdown ran into a goal line stand by Senate Democrats and Independents. With a 51-45 vote margin, the measure fell short of the 60 votes needed to close debate and force a final vote on the measure. Democratic Illinois Senator Dick Durbin spelled out his party's case.
This infringes on the privacy of girls and women and is a dangerous use of the powers of government to target children and their families. Put yourself in the shoes of these families for just a moment. Imagine being the parent of a trans kid and telling your child they are not even allowed to play on the same sports team as their friends at school because a politician said they couldn't.
Senate Republicans responded with what's been on brand for them since the 2024 elections. Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville, the bill's sponsor, took to Fox News, and the former college football coach let his real feelings about women's sports come to the surface.
We're getting to a point now where women and girls sports are getting ready to be extinct, because already in states across this country we have high school teams that are made up of totally boys participating against girls.
I guess Coach Tuberville didn't notice how last year the NCAA basketball women's Final Four got higher television viewership and ratings than the men's Final Four, or how women's college volleyball broke attendance records, and how the first appearance of a women's college title game on one of the major networks for the first time since the 1980s was the most watched sporting event of that weekend. Never mind how a Power 4 college football school filled a college football stadium for college volleyball, or that the participation numbers for women's sports, especially among young people, have trended up over the last 30 years. Coach Tuberville, you may be a man, but you can be a man and be a Karen against women's sports. Because Tommy Tuberville doesn't care about women's sports. He's just here for the transphobia. President Trump's State of the Union address on Tuesday pointed out a certain Peyton McNabb. Now, she was a high school student in North Carolina. She's a college student now, who back in high school played volleyball, and because she failed to execute a dig, she accused a girl from a rival high school who's been registered as a girl in her school district every year since kindergarten of being transgender and injuring her in that game. Now let's unpack this. See, a local journalist in North Carolina broke the initial story in 2022, and it was a story of how right-wing media took an incident and blew it all the way out of proportion. Brittany Lofthouse, a reporter and founder of the Southern Scoop, discussed the inconsistencies with McNabb's story 3 years ago to this reporter.
As a journalist and everything that I have found, I cannot definitively say that a player on either team is transgender, but I also can't say that a player is not transgender. There's nothing to say either way. I understand that there was speculation or rumors as such. And the only thing that I could do as a journalist, whenever I first started looking into this, a month before any other media outlet reported on it, or any other newspaper or TV began to sensationalize it or politicize it, I looked back at the Highlands team and the Highlands volleyball team over the past 4 years. And the players on that team have played women's volleyball on that team the duration of their high school career. Prior to that, there's yearbooks that date back at that school, that date back for when a current senior at Highlands School would have been in kindergarten. And you look at those yearbooks and you look at what's available, publicly available, and you look at the names that are on the roster for the Highlands volleyball team today, and you look at the yearbooks that go back to the beginning of their elementary school career, and those players are little girls in kindergarten.
Can you confirm
the child in question for Highlands that history goes back that far?
I can.
You can confirm. So that child in question, who's rumored to be, is in a kindergarten class photo through Highlands back in 2010.
Yes.
Another one of the big sticking points is none of the outlets that reported these rumors bothered to run a photo of the team or disclose how they came across what they reported. Now, McNabb and former University of Kentucky swimmer turned anti-trans activist Riley Gaines were both guests of President Trump at the State of the Union address. Gaines flew in from Minnesota, where Minnesota legislators voted down a similar measure in their state Tuesday, and Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party officials brought the petty shade. And they talked about what Gaines will never talk about in terms of being a professional transphobe. In a post on X.com, the DFL called her out as, quote, Riley the grifter Gaines, while also showing how she makes her coins. The post reads, watch Riley the grifter Gaines pocket $20,000 to praise a bill that subjects all women and girls to inappropriate scrutiny about their bodies. Instead of focusing on divisive political stunts, how about you work with us to make life more affordable for Minnesotans? I'm going to tell you something, DFL. It was petty, and I'm here for it. But of course, even Democrats have problems. Did you check out Gavin Newsom, the California governor turned possible presidential candidate in 28? The debut of his podcast, he talks to Charlie Kirk. Yes, that Charlie Kirk. You know, the Charlie Kirk that said this about Leah Thomas a couple of years back.
The NCAA is a perverted organization. They platformed a biological male who won a national championship and then was allowed in incredibly disturbing detail to be around you and your fellow competitors. And again, I blame the decline of American men. This never should have been, someone should have just took care of it the way we used to take care of things in the 1950s or 60s.
It seems that Gavin Newsom is kind of simpatico on certain issues with Kirk when it comes to trans people. Let's take a listen.
If you want to, you have an opportunity to, run to the middle and seize this mantle. Obviously, You're talking to me of all people.
Yeah.
So, you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports, that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out say no.
No, and I appreciate
But would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It is an issue of fairness. So it's deeply unfair.
Would you speak out against this young man, A.B. Hernandez, who right now is going to win the state championship in the long jump? I can see you wrestling with it.
No, I'm not wrestling. I'm not wrestling with the fairness issue. I totally agree with you. By the way, as someone with 4 kids, I think
and two daughters, right?
2 daughters,
and I have a daughter too,
and a wife that went, God forbid, to Stanford and played on the junior national soccer team, and a guy who got into college only because I was left-handed and could throw a baseball a little bit or hit the ball for a little bit. So I revere sports, and so the issue of fairness is completely legit. And I saw that the last couple of years. Boy, did I saw how you guys were able to weaponize that issue at another level.
Not weaponize. That's
well, weaponize may be pejorative. You're right, but you were able to
shine a light on,
highlight it in a way that, frankly, there are not that many. We're talking about, I think, the NC2A, 510,000? No, but I just didn't realize.
It's 890 medals and trophies that we know of in the last 5 years. That's a lot.
No, so let me step back, say completely fair on the issue of fairness. I completely agree.
I got to say, Gavin Newsom showing his inner Keir Starmer here. Now, when we return to Transposition Sports, we're going to unpack and decode some of the lies that we're hearing lately, while looking at a case of how professional transphobes demonized a certain trans athlete with game. That and more to come. This is Transposition Sports.
What do you say to people who say, you are hurting me? You are hurting people I care about. You are hurting my community. You are causing pain.
I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe.
The NCAA forced female swimmers to share a locker room with Thomas, a 6'4", 22-year-old male who was fully intact with male genitalia.
I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe. Leah became the first male to win a national title for on the women's side. I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe.
Not only were my teammates and the other female swimmers and I forced to compete against this 6'4" biological man.
I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe.
Look, I know the guidelines for the competition, but what are the guidelines that just allowed this man into our locker room?
I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe.
The NCAA is a perverted organization. They platformed a biological male who won a national championship. Someone should have just took care of it the way we used to take care of things in the 1950s or 60s.
I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe. I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe.
I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe. I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe. I don't want to be considered a bigot or a transphobe.
So maybe I'll start a little bit softer.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine.
Dad?
Before you say anything, I just want to apologize for what I said this morning. I've been doing a lot of thinking. If you want to change your name, if you want to wear a dress.
It's a skirt, Dad.
Skirt? I don't know the kind of support you need, but let's get you some for all this transgender stuff.
Wait. Are you serious? Dad, what is this?
Oh, this is me supporting you. This is me saying I love you. This is me not losing you.
I love you, Dad.
Love you. Holly.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
And welcome back to Transposition Sports. I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb. We're going to look at how far professional transphobes will go to sell a lie. Case in point, last weekend, USA Track and Field New York held their Open and Masters Indoor Championship meets. Now, Masters Division in track and field, the age group start at 35 years old. And there's also the Open Division, where if you're 14 years or older, you pay the entry fee, you're in the race. Now, one of the people who did pay the entry fee was Sadie Schreiner. Thanks to the NCAA's ban on transgender women in collegiate athletics in February, she can't run for the Rochester Institute of Technology. She's a Division III All-American from last year. So she's jumping into any meet that will allow her to run. And this particular meet was ran by the USATF, and those regulations allow her to run. By the way, the rules are, they use the current International Olympic Committee rules that have been in effect since 2015 as a guideline for what is classified a sub-elite event. Schreiner can race in the division that corresponds to her gender identity. Now, Schreiner did her trademark events, 200 meters and 400 meters in the women's open division, and she won both. And that sent the usual suspects from corners such as Fox News, Daily Wire, Outkick, to pull out pens dipped in anti-trans venom.
College-age transgender athlete wins track events against teenagers.
Screamed one headline.
Taking first place from a 14-year-old.
Screamed another. Now, here's the facts. A number of the open class entries were active high school athletes. Now that's not uncommon, especially for indoor track, which is big in the U.S. Northeast. In the women's 400 meters, it was reported that Schreiner won the event because two other competitors, both high schoolers, according to Outkick, quote, courageously decided not to race against the transgender athlete and they forfeited the race. It's a fact that the two athletes registered to compete against Schreiner, New Jersey high school sophomore Amars Hyatt, and New York high school junior Anna Vitalova did not start any of their events they were entered in, including the events that Schreiner wasn't in. Now, a note about Vitalova. Goes to Bronx Science High School. She's a high school All-American who's been given the go-ahead from World Athletics to compete for Bulgaria internationally. Last summer, she competed in that nation's national championship. Now, as a high school sophomore, Vitalova put up a personal best 200 meters that puts her in the ballpark of Schreiner's best indoor efforts as an athlete at RIT. But this is an example of what the anti-trans run and gun media does. They pick something that's really obscure, pin a trans person's name to it, and then make you hate that particular person and have you react in an adverse way every time you hear their name. It's the same way that the politicians do it. Look at some of the things that were said earlier when we showed you what Tommy Tuberville had to say. Now, here's another example of the lies. Jim Thune, senator from South Dakota. Here's some of the things he had to say.
Mr. President, at the beginning of February, President Trump took action to protect the original meaning of Title IX and ensure that federal funding would not go to schools that allow men to compete as women. As the father of two former female athletes, I am grateful for his commitment to upholding fairness and common sense.
Oh, really, Senator? President Trump is protecting women. Is this what you're talking about?
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the...
Now that's what makes all of this work for them, because they believe that you, the average person, will not fact check them and they can say whatever they want. However, I fact check people. Plus, I'm a track geek. And the fact is, what they're trying to sell as a protest of the track meet was really 2 no-shows of the track meet. But there's also another issue in this. Sadie Schreiner, again, Division III All-American last season, 3rd place at NCAA D3 Outdoors at 200 meters. She should have been running in the Liberty League Indoor Championships, not in an all-comers meet. She should be looking ahead to the competitions to come. She should be getting ready for nationals in March. She's already run a qualifying time good enough to stand at the Division III Indoor Nationals now. NCAA President Charlie Baker, take a tip from the Democrats in the Senate. It's time to stand up for inclusionary policy that the NCAA has fostered since 2011. If there's ever a time for you to stand up and be counted, now is the time. Senate Democrats met the moment on Monday. Hey, Chuck, it's your turn. Last up, some college sports trans joy from north of the border. Now, last month we told you the story of Harriet McKenzie, star post player at Vancouver Island University in British Columbia. At the start of the season, her VIU Mariners were taking on the Bearcats of Columbia Bible College, their rival school in their conference. There was a lot of chippy play going on against her that day, and after a game, a lot of transphobia from the CBC coaching staff, and that prompted McKenzie to make a statement about it.
The opposing team's head coach, Taylor Claggett, cornered one of our athletic staff and went on a tirade about how I shouldn't be allowed to play. Fast forward to Saturday morning, I woke up to a call from my coach who was on the verge of tears. He asked if I was okay and if I was aware of the situation on social media. After the night before his game, Taylor Claggett's brother and business partner, Kyle Claggett, had posted the following on his Instagram story. During the game later that afternoon, my team rallied together and we ended up playing our best game yet. However, it soon became evident that CBC's tactic had shifted to simply trying to injure me. Coming out of halftime, our 14-point lead was starting to grow, and unsurprisingly, CBC started to get even dirtier. In the unsporting foul you can see here, I get two-hand chucked to the ground by number 13 without a play on the ball in sight. Then, head coach Taylor Claggett can be seen applauding in support. Sadly, situations like these are nothing new to me. Throughout my entire playing career, I've been outed and attacked by everyone from players to coaches to fans. They try to invalidate my achievements, from Player of the Year to National MVP, claiming she only won that because she's trans. Many attribute my success not to hard work and dedication, but to the fact that I am a trans woman. These people don't know my story, and they don't care to. They don't care that I began my transition in kindergarten, never having undergone a male puberty. They don't care that my testosterone levels are 1/10 that of a cis woman due to the absence of reproductive organs, placing me at a significant competitive disadvantage. They don't care. Instead, they are fueled by their shared bigotry and ignorance.
Now, when it was time for the two teams to meet again last month at CBC, the VIU players voted unanimously to forfeit both games. They called on the Pac-West Conference to investigate the situation that happened in October. Now, the VIU team made their feelings known in a letter where they announced they wouldn't be playing the games. The games were postponed by the league. Now, within the letter itself, the players had stated, all of us should be free to be ourselves and play the game we love in a supportive and safe environment. And that includes queer and trans athletes. The season's gone on and VIU just kept the beat going. They were 21-1 heading to the Pac-West Conference tournament last week, and they raced through that tournament all the way to the conference championship. And the title game was the sweetest revenge. It was VIU against CBC, and the Mariners downed the Bearcats, paced by tournament MVP Harriet McKenzie's 21 points and 10 rebounds as the Mariners took them down 69-59 and punched their ticket to the Canadian College Athletic Association Championship Tournament. The tournament starts March 12th in Fredericton, New Brunswick. I know reporters aren't supposed to root, but I wouldn't be lying if I'm saying if I didn't have a soft spot for Harriet McKenzie and the VIU Mariners. To put through such a solid effort to win a conference title and stand on business to win the conference title and head to a national championship is a big deal. The way these kids and fans of this school have stood up for a transgender woman who just wants to play a game she loves has been special to see and great to see, and a good example of the best of sports. Now, win or lose, Harriet McKenzie and the entire team, you've got an open invitation to come here to Transposition Sports. I'd love to hear your story about how you worked through and navigated this season. I'd love to meet all of you. Also, a memo to the CCAA tournament officials. Please, please, please keep all the teams safe. Keep an eye on Miss McKenzie, and if a certain group called Rebel News brings anyone to harass her, shut them down at the arena front door and let it be known, if you're here to cover the tournament, fine, but if you're here to harass a kid because she's trans, hit the bricks, beat it. No one wants you here. And much respect to the CCAA and U Sports, the university governing bodies in Canada, for not listening to the noise and standing up to the policies that you've set. I know a certain person in Indianapolis who needs to take heed of that example. Harriet, play well. Good luck, Mariners. For Transposition Sports, I'm Carly Chardonnay Webb.